Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about 7-1 equations of circles. So the first thing we need to do is review the midpoint and distance formula. So remember, the midpoint is a point in the center of the line, and we get it by adding x1 to x2 and dividing by 2. Same with y's. You're basically finding the average of the 2 points. Your distance formula then is d equals the square root of x1 minus x2 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared. Again, the order of it does not matter as long as you keep the same point in the same position in both parentheses. So looking at example 1, it asks for the midpoint of that line segment. So my midpoint is going to be, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the x's. When I circle my x's, I know that's a visual cue for me to say those go in the parenthesis together. So I'm going to put those together, -3 plus 5 over 2, and then I'm putting my non-circled terms together, -7 plus 2 over 2. So -3 plus 5 is 2, over 2 is 1, -7 plus 2 is -5, so that's -5 halves. You are welcome to write it as a fraction or a decimal. So if I look at B, it gives me the midpoint and the endpoints, but notice one of each of the endpoints is missing, so I'm going to need to find that. And then it asks, what is the sum of x and y? So that is my final goal, is what is the sum of x and y? So again, just like on the previous problem, I'm going to go ahead and circle all of my x's. So I know those all go together. And we're going to write 2 equations. So the endpoint, 3 plus x over 2, equals my midpoint. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And subtract 3. Now I'm going to do the same with the non-circled terms. So I get y plus 10 all over 2 equals 4. Subtract 10. So my final question was for the sum. So x plus y equals -7. And finally on C, it says, what is the distance of the segment CD with those given endpoints? So again, I'm circling my x's so I know what goes together. So distance equals 1 minus 3 squared plus, and since I did 1 first, I have to do -5 first in the second one. Hey, remember when we have minus a negative, it turns into plus a positive. So I get the square root of -2 squared plus -3 squared. I would then type in what is inside the square root, not the square root itself. I want to figure out what this equals inside. And make sure you put the square outside of the parentheses when you have a negative inside. So I end up with square root of 13, which is approximately 3.6 units. And since we are going to be using it to do graphs today, you don't necessarily have to write out any further than the 10th of a place. So let's next talk about conic sections. So the equation of a circle is a conic section. Okay, a conic section is a figure obtained by slicing a double cone. With a plane in different directions. And that should be in. So as you can see below, there are 4 types of conic sections. We have a circle, as if I slice it horizontally. A parabola, I slice it at an angle going through an endpoint. An ellipse is at an angle, but not through an endpoint. And a hyperbola is if I cut it straight down vertically. We are only going to focus this semester on circles. The rest of these we will get next semester. So a conic section can be written in 2 forms. Standard form, this is the form we want. This is the a times x minus h squared plus b times y minus k squared equals c. Where a, b, and c are just placeholders for numbers. Okay, they're not anything specific. This is the form we want because we can obtain any information we need to graph it from this form. When you're doing your assignment, they tend to give it to you in conic form, which is if I take my standard form and I multiply it out. And remember, my capital letters are just placeholders for any generic number. Okay, so conic form is basically multiplying it out and saying it equal to 0. This is the form it'll be given to you in today, so we're going to have to complete the square to actually get it into standard form, which is where we want it. So today we're going to focus on circles. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So standard form for a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where hk is my center. Notice that it is the opposite of what is in there that I bring out as my center. Just like when we did transformations, when it's with the x, it came out as the opposite. In this case, it's going to come out as the opposite in both x and y, because they're both within grouping symbols and a squared on the outside. So whatever's inside is going to come out as the opposite. And again, my equation has r squared, so my radius is r. We need to make sure we take the square root of it. So as you can see in my example, I already have the circle drawn. Your assignment today won't have the circle drawn, but we're going to put the information on so you can see what it looks like. So my center is going to be the opposite of these. So it's going to be 3, 2. So I would come over and I would plot my center. 3, negative 2. My radius, so I know r squared equals 9. So that means I'd take the square root of both sides. So my radius is 3. And what I would do is I would draw 3 in every direction. Up, down, left, right. And what that does is it gives me my endpoints to play a game of connect the dots to make the best circle I possibly can. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the examples. Again, we are going to complete the square. So we'll go through how to do that right now. First thing we are going to do is group our same letters together. So I'm going to put in parentheses, I have an x squared plus 2x And I'm going to put a plus blank. I'll explain what's going to happen with that in a second. Now I'm going to group my y's together. So that's y squared minus 4y plus blank. I'm going to take my constant and I am going to move it to the other side. And I ran out of room, so we're going to put it right below. So that equals a positive 31. Now to keep my equation balanced, what I add to the left, I need to add to the right. So I added 2 blanks to the left. Therefore, I need to add 2 blanks to the right to keep my equation from being lopsided. So, what goes in the first blank? We are going to take this term and we're going to divide it by 2 and square it. And that is exactly how I want you to write it. I do not want you to figure out what it is. I just want you to take your b value, divide by 2, square it, and write it out just like that. And what I put on one side, I need to make sure I also put on the other side to keep my equation from tipping over. Next, I do the same for the y. So my b value is negative 4. Because I'm going to square it, I don't need to worry about the negative. Negative squared is still positive, so we're good. So I'm going to do 4 over 2 squared. And again, what I do to one side, I need to do to the other. So now we are going to magically factor. So if I look at this first one, this is how it factors. I bring down my letter. I bring down my sign. Half of the middle term is 1. Put a squared on the outside. Let's do it again for the y's. So I bring down my letter. Bring down the sign. Half of 4 is 2. Put a squared on the outside. That is why we completed the square, was to make or give us the ability to factor that easily. Now the other part, all of this, I would just plug into my calculator exactly as you see it, including the parentheses with the squared on the outside. And when I do, I get 36. So my center, again, it's the opposite of these. So it's negative 1, 2. My radius, so my r squared is 36. Therefore, my radius is 6. So that is the information I need, and now I'm going to plot it on my graph. So I go to negative 1, 2. Then I'm going to go 6 in every direction. So I go 6 to the right, 6 up, 6 to the left, and 6 down. And now I'm going to make the best circle I possibly can. Okay, I'm going to tell you my circles never really look that much like circles, but we're going to try. Just making sure I go through my endpoints. And there it is. Okay, all I ask is that you plot your center, plot your endpoints, and then make the best circle you can out of it. Okay, let's look at B. Gonna start out the exact same way. We are going to group our like terms together. And we're going to include our plus blank. We're going to set it equal to the constant that I move over to the other side and include 2 blanks. What goes in the first blank? This number So it's 6 over 2 squared. That's what goes here, 6 over 2 squared. Here, I look at this, so it's 8 over 2 squared and 8 over 2 squared. Now we're going to factor it. So I bring down the letter, bring down the sign. Half of 6 is 3. Same with the next one, bring down the letter, bring down the sign. Half of 8 is 4. And plug all that in my calculator, I get 7. So my center is at 3, 4. Because I do the opposite of what is there. Okay, so this is all the stuff you need. You need the equation of your circle. I need my center. And I need the radius. So I know r squared is 7. So r equals the square root of 7, which is 2.6. Because sometimes it's not a nice, neat number. So I'm going to go ahead and plot my point. So I have 3, 4. And then I'm going to go out 2.6 and up and down 2.6. Again, it's a rough estimate and we make the best circle we can. Okay, last one. If you'll notice, there's something different about C. It has a coefficient. We need to go ahead and get rid of that coefficient. So for a circle, they will both always be exactly the same. We cannot complete the square if there's a coefficient in front. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything by 4. I get x squared plus y squared minus 3x plus 6y minus, and we're going to leave it as 19/4. It will work its way out in the end. So let's regroup. So we have x squared minus 3x plus blank. And there's always a plus sign in between for a circle. And don't forget to add your blanks to the right-hand side. So what goes in the first one? We look at this number. It is 3 over 2 squared. And again, leave it alone. It's going to be a fraction. It'll work its way out. Here, so it's 6 over 2 squared. 6 over 2 squared. So now we're going to do our magic factoring. So it is x minus 3 halves, because remember it's your middle term divided by 2. Plus, bring down the letter, bring down the sign. Half of 6 is 3. And all of that, all of the right-hand side, when I put it in my calculator, gets me 16. So there's my first thing I need, which is the equation of a circle. Next, we need to find my center. And since I am plotting it, I'm going to go ahead and write it as a decimal. So my center is 1.5 and -3. And next, I know r squared equals 16, therefore my radius is 4. So now I'm going to go ahead and plot this. I go to -1.5, or 1.5, -3. And then I am going to go 4 every direction. And then again, make the best circle we possibly can. Okay, let's move on to example 2. Sorry, that was example 3. So 3a says, writing equation of a circle with the endpoints of the diameter 12, negative 17, and 4, negative 11 in standard form. So first thing I need to figure out is my center, and then I also need my radius. So to find my center, I'm going to use my midpoint. Okay, if they give me the diameter, the center is going to be halfway through. So that's going to be 12 plus 4 over 2. And negative 17 plus negative 11 all over 2. So I end up with a center at 8, negative 14. Now I need to figure out my radius, because I need a center and a radius to get the equation of a circle. So my radius, I'm going to use the distance formula from the center, which I just found, to an endpoint. Okay, it doesn't matter which endpoint I pick, either one will get me the exact same answer. So I'm going to use my center, and I am going to use the point 12, negative 17. Okay, so here we go. My radius is going to be square root of 12 minus 8 squared plus negative 17 minus negative 14 squared. Okay, again, remember minus a negative turns into plus a positive. So I end up with 4 squared plus negative 3 squared, which gets me square root of 25, which means my radius is 5. So let's plug that into the information, or my formula. Remember, the formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So let's plug it in. So that's x minus 8 squared plus y minus negative 14 squared equals 5 squared. Now I simplify. Okay, again, we don't like minus and negative, so we're going to put a plus. So it's going to be x minus 8 squared. You do not have to FOIL those out. Plus y plus 14 squared equals 25 squared, or 25. And there's the equation of the circle. So B asks, write an equation in standard form of a circle whose center is in quadrant 2 and is tangent to lines x equals negative 2, y equals negative 1, and x equals 14. So let's just draw this out. So I know if I am in quadrant 2, that is this upper quadrant right here. And so I'm going to draw some lines in here. I'm going to draw in my x equals 2 line, or x equals -2. So that would be roughly right here. I'm going to draw in x equals -14. So if I think about just that part, my circle touches both of those lines. Therefore, my circle, the center of my circle, needs to be in between. So what is this distance from here to here? Well, it's 12. Therefore, my center, my radius, is going to get me 6. Because my diameter would be 12, no matter where my circle is. So my radius is 6. I also have the line then, y equals -1. Okay, so my center is 6 away from this line. So it has to be 6 up. So that means my y coordinate is going to be 5. And it has to be 6 from this way. So that gets me -8. So my center is at -8, 5. So now I have everything I need for my equation. So remember, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So this is x minus -8 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 6 squared. And then we simplify, so it's x plus 8 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 36. Okay, the last one says write the equation of the graphed circle in conic form. So first we locate our center. So our center looks like right here. So that's -2, -3. Therefore, my radius, any of those, is going to be 4. So we plug it into our formula. So it's x minus -2 squared plus y minus -3 squared equals 4 squared. So if I simplify that, but they don't want it in standard form, they want it in conic form, which means I need to factor everything out. So I'm going to do my shortcut. Square the first, multiply and double, square the last. I'm going to do it for both. And I'm going to bring the 16 over to the other side. Now I just got to combine like terms and put them in order. So it's my x squared, then my y squared, then my x, then my y, and finally my constants. 4 plus 9 minus 16 gets me a -3. Okay, that is it for this lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know by email. I'll see you guys tomorrow.